Salve, salve, rapaziada, sejam bem-vindos para mais um vídeo aqui desse lindíssimo canal. Então bora lá. How The Rock tried and failed to take over DC. Como que o The Rock tentou tomar conta da DC e como que ele falhou em tomar conta da DC? Como que seria o DCEU se o The Rock tivesse dado certo? Se o Adão Negro tivesse ido bem, Henry Cavill ia continuar como Superman, o que ia acontecer? Bullets and Blockbusters é o nome do canal do vídeo que a gente vai reagir. Bora lá.
The DC universe had revolved around Black Adam. Well, for a moment, it almost did. If Dwayne Johnson's plan had gone through, the DC cinematic universe would have been restructured around a long-simmering rivalry between Black Adam and Henry Cavill's Superman. Cavill would still be wearing the cape, and Black Adam vs. Superman would be the tentpole event everything was building toward. But that's not how things played out. Instead, a series of power plays, questionable decisions, and behind-the-scenes drama didn't just derail Johnson's vision, it helped fracture the very universe he was trying to lead. To find out what went wrong, let's take a look at how The Rock tried and failed to take over DC. After making a successful leap from wrestling to Hollywood with his big screen debut in The Mummy Returns, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson quickly emerged as a rising action star. His breakout role was so well received that he landed his own spin-off film, The Scorpion King, cementing his transition into blockbuster leading man territory. While Johnson showed clear charisma and screen presence early on,
esse é aquele filme lá daquela cena, sabe? Do escorpião rei que ele desce assim, que ele é meio que o escorpião. Mano, a cena mais horrenda de todas, sabe? Então...
Vehicles like The Rundown, Walking Tall, and Doom had modest box office returns rather than breakout success. As a result, his early career didn't immediately launch him into A-list status, and he often took supporting roles in ensemble films like Be Cool and Get Smart to stay visible and build credibility. And it was while he was filming Get Smart that Johnson was approached by that film's director, Peter Segal, about playing Shazam, a film Segal was hired to direct at the time. However, as Johnson learned more about the story, he found himself much more drawn to Shazam's arch-nemesis, Black Adam, a morally ambiguous character with shades of gray, not unlike the persona that made him a superstar in the WWF. By the time the project finally moved forward nearly a decade later, Johnson had become one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. As a result, when the studio presented him with the script to Shazam, which featured origin stories for both the title character and Black Adam, Johnson and his team pushed back. While the studio felt the script was great,
Eu achava que o sonho do The Rock era ser o Black Adam e ele não quis participar do filme do Shazam. Caramba, que estranho. Porque eu achava, tipo, pô, a meta como ator do The Rock era ser o Black Adam. Eu achava, tipo, ele era apaixonado pelo Black Adam. Então, tipo, não é muito assim.
Rightfully so, felt he should be the lead. But since he was drawn to playing Black Adam rather than Shazam, he lobbied to give each character their own movie, which he argued would also allow each film to embrace a tone that fit its character. Light and fun for Shazam, and dark and violent for Black Adam. Shazam hit theaters first and proved to be a hit, but what would have been a perfect opportunity to connect the larger DC universe instead highlighted just how poorly DC was being managed. The film's final scene was supposed to feature a surprise cameo by Superman, who would sit down for lunch and have a conversation with Shazam and Freddy, teasing a larger shared world. But in a movie that underscored the disjointed state of DC's planning, Shazam's Zach Levi would say that they tried desperately to get Henry Cavill but were thwarted. Reportedly, Cavill, or his agent, Danny Garcia, who is also The Rock's ex-wife and agent, felt the offer for the cameo was too low, and declined unless Cavill was paid what he believed he was worth. Other sources claimed the holdout was a strategic move by Garcia to negotiate a new Superman deal, as Cavill had only one film left on his contract, the still unmade Man of Steel 2. Regardless, negotiations broke down, and with Cavill unavailable, the scene was awkwardly shot using Zach Levi's stunt double, seen only from the neck down. It was a kind of sloppy world building you'd never see in a Marvel film. For example, when Robert Downey Jr. was written to the Incredible Hulk's post-credits scene, he showed up, because even in the early days, Downey and Marvel understood that these moments mattered when it came to building a cohesive shared universe, and they treated them with the care and commitment they deserved. As a result, the experience reportedly...
Cara, mas, tipo, o Robert Downey Jr. ele tava no começo de carreira, vou levantar aqui um negócio. O Robert Downey Jr. tava no começo de carreira no MCU, né? O segundo filme, só tinha feito Homem de Ferro. Importante essa participação para estruturar o MCU. Será que ele vai aparecer em Quarteto Fantástico? Pensando nisso, porque, pô, tenho certeza que a Marvel não pagou caro pra ele aparecer no filme do Hulk. Tenho certeza absoluta, tipo, óbvio. Será que ele vai aparecer em Quarteto Fantástico, então? Vamos ver.
led to a straining in the relationship between Cavill, Garcia, and Warner Brothers. During this period, DC's box office fortunes began to decline. After Zack Snyder exited Justice League, an internal shakeup followed the film's disappointing performance. Warner Brothers brought in Walter Hamada, a former New Line cinema executive known for producing horror hits like It and The Conjuring, to lead DC Films. His mandate was to shift the franchise away from being driven by a single filmmaker, namely Zack Snyder, and toward a broader, more commercially viable strategy. But despite a massive hit with Aquaman and a strong showing from Shazam, the studio couldn't maintain momentum. Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, and the soft reboot of The Suicide Squad all fell short at the box office. After Black Adam was shot and edited, the film performed disastrously at a test screening, scoring just as poorly as Batgirl, which Warner Brothers would soon cancel entirely in favor of a tax write-off. DC Films president Walter Hamada would learn of the Batgirl cancellation at this screening from Warner Brothers executives. Furious at being left out of the decision, Hamada considered resigning, but ultimately agreed to stay on through Black Adam's release. In response to the film's poor reception, Warner Brothers ordered a costly 20-day round of reshoots in an attempt to improve the movie. Originally greenlit at $190 million, the budget ballooned to $260 million.
Isso é muito dinheiro. Meu Deus, é muito dinheiro. Rapaziada, é maior do que o orçamento médio de filme de super-herói. Tipo, ó, deixa eu ver. Foi 260 milhões. Vim aqui. Calma aí. Calma aí, rapaziada. Orçamento. Calma aí. Mano, isso é mais... Caraca. Isso é mais que o orçamento de Guardiões da Galáxia 3. Mano. Meu Deus, velho. Meu Deus. Não dá um negócio desse.
Long-term plan was eventually to have Black Adam and Shazam face off in a future film. The original plan for Black Adam's post-credits scene featured Shazam being recruited by Hawkman to join the Justice Society of America, setting the stage for Shazam and Black Adam's eventual clash. But since behind the scenes, DC Films was in chaos, with Walter Hamada preparing to exit the studio, Dwayne Johnson, seeing an opening, made a bold power play to reshape the DC universe around Black Adam.
Nossa.
He pitched Hamada on building a new post-credits...
Caramba, velho. Cara, eu achei que isso foi um surto coletivo. Era quem? O Homem-Gavião, Senhor Destino... É Senhor Destino? Acho que é. Átomo e a outra lá. Esqueci o nome. Caramba.
Scene featuring Superman, aiming to kickstart a long-term storyline where the two characters would dance around each other in subsequent films, teasing and building toward a massive tentpole event where they'd finally face off. But to Johnson's surprise, Hamada turned him down. Hamada had already mapped out a larger plan for the DC universe, one that would culminate in a Crisis on Infinite Earths adaptation. The upcoming Flash movie was designed to lay the groundwork, introducing a multiverse and bringing back legacy characters like Michael Keaton's Batman. Hamada's vision also included launching a black Superman.
Que? O Michael B. Jordan.
In his own.
Ah, velho. Por que trouxeram James Gunn? Eu queria ver. Tô brincando, rapaziada. Eu ainda prefiro o James Gunn. Mas, pô, eu queria muito ver. Podia ter terminado, né? O DCEU, esperar mais uns 5 aninhos assim. Terminar com uma crise nas Infinitas Terras. Podia ter feito isso, cara. Ia dar dinheiro, tenho certeza. Nossa.
Series of films. Johnson, however, refused to take no for an answer and went around Hamada to his bosses, pitching the same idea to Warner Brothers executives who would greenlight it. But there was just one problem. Henry Cavill was only under contract for one more Superman film, the long-awaited Man of Steel 2, which was originally sidelined for Batman vs. Superman and seemed less likely to happen as time went on. Additionally, Cavill and Johnson shared the same agent, Johnson's ex-wife, Dani Garcia. Pressed for time to get the cameo shot for Black Adam's release, Cavill was given a verbal agreement by DC to return as Superman in subsequent films, and paid $250,000 for his appearance at the end of Black Adam, never actually signing a proper contract to return. Not only that, but Cavill also exited The Witcher, sparking speculation that the role of Superman conflicted with his commitment to the series, although later reports revealed deep creative differences between Cavill and The Witcher showrunners. The Superman cameo was meant to be a fun and unexpected surprise for fans, like most post-credit scenes are. But with Black Adam tracking modestly at the box office, The Rock began hinting at Cavill's return ahead of time in an effort to build buzz and boost ticket sales. Pressure was immense, as Johnson's entire plan to reshape the DC universe around Black Adam depended on the film's success. Johnson's efforts to position Black Adam as more than just Shazam's arch-nemesis ended up backfiring, hurting not just his own film but the Shazam sequel as well. After vetoing a planned post-credits cameo of Shazam and Black Adam and replacing him with Superman, Johnson also blocked the use of Black Adam characters in the Shazam Fury of the Gods post-credits scene. As a result, DC was forced to awkwardly plug in characters from the Peacemaker TV series instead. When Black Adam was finally released, it underperformed both critically and commercially, effectively derailing Johnson's long-term plans to reshape the DC universe around his character. Around the same time, another major shakeup was unfolding behind the scenes. Warner Brothers was acquired by Discovery, and their CEO, David Zaslav, wasted no time outlining his vision for DC's future. Determined to bring order to the chaotic state of the DCEU, Zaslav began searching for a creative and strategic czar to mirror Marvel's Kevin Feige, someone who could establish a unified creative direction and long-term brand strategy. He spoke openly about wanting to reset DC and build a 10-year plan modeled after Marvel Studios. As Walter Hamada prepared to step down, Zaslav launched a search for new leadership before hiring Guardians of the Galaxy writer-director James Gunn and producer Peter Safran, naming them the co-CEOs of the newly formed DC Studios. Wasting no time, the duo scrapped the previous regime's plans and announced a full reboot of the DC universe following the release of the remaining films already in the pipeline. Gunn saw Superman as a jewel in DC's crown and made rebooting the character his top priority. He also chose to write the script himself, reimagining Superman as a younger, more idealistic version of the hero, which meant Henry Cavill would not be returning to the role. Cavill, who had just returned to Superman for a cameo in Black Adam and publicly announced that he was returning to the role, now had to backtrack those comments as he felt like a pawn in The Rock's failed attempt to take over DC. Cavill would fire his agent, Danny Garcia, and while many speculated that it was due to the Black Adam Superman debacle, apparently him and Garcia had already parted ways before James Gunn officially announced that Superman would be recast, bringing Cavill's rollercoaster return to an unceremonious end. In the end, Johnson's attempt to reshape the DC universe around himself backfired spectacularly. By elevating Black Adam, traditionally Shazam's arch-enemy, into the centerpiece of the DC universe, Johnson disregarded the character's roots and alienated fans who were familiar with the source material. In his push to position Black Adam as a rival to Superman, he never seemed to ask the most important question: did audiences even want to see Black Adam face off against the Man of Steel in the first place, let alone have them tease a confrontation over a multi-film arc? Johnson's behind-the-scenes maneuvering alienated key players, and his misguided plan to sideline Shazam in favor of Superman while aggressively promoting what would be his own underwhelming film only deepened the disconnect. Instead of building a cohesive universe, he fractured it further, prioritizing personal brand building over storytelling, and leaving both the Black Adam and Shazam franchises worse off in the process. Rather than saving DC, Johnson helped accelerate the collapse of a shared universe already on shaky ground. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets.
Beleza, então. Isso aí, rapaziada. Esse foi o vídeo de hoje. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Dá like, se inscreve. Eu sei que é chato, mas eu peço do mesmo jeito. Rapaziada, o link do vídeo que eu assisti e também do meu canal secundário, os dois estão na descrição. Aqui tá um vídeo que o YouTube acha que você vai gostar. Aqui tá falando do meu canal. Pô, esse vídeo que eu reagi foi legal, hein? Vou começar a reagir mais vídeos desse canal. Valeu, falou, tchau, tchau. Até a próxima. Fui!